Good morning, good evening, and good night to all. This is Reading in Solitude, and I'm your host of Reading in Solitude. Now, tonight we're going to be reading a story from a friend of the channel, AJ Wright, and you can check out her Wattpad in the description down below, as well as the story which I will be reading that will be linked in the description below as well. Now, without further ado, I say let's get into this story, Untitled Part 3, by AJ Wright. The highest branches reached into the darkening sky like the snarled hands of starved souls reaching for the last of the day's light. The connecting boughs there just as ravenous, swinging and smacking against their pole-thin neighbor, leading to a trunk that twisted in upon itself so it bulged in a bent contortion of pain. Ez blearily recognized the tree that shaped her fantasies, the hill she climbed now bald and slick from the recent bout of rain, the large umbrellas of leaves that sheltered her and her friends during the time that she lived in this small community had been stripped by some long-off wind. Its playful blend, as if caught mid-dance, had grown beyond the description of being playful. She knelt at the base of the tree where the grooves in which Kit and Peggy, sometimes Melody, would rest in, even when the day's heat would pool inside of those grooves. Hey. The words felt foolish. How did the girl she was manage to talk to a mere plant? That summer, when she collectively had more friends than she would in the following 10 years, one of them being the living corpse of a tree which sat right before her, sick friend she'd poured midnight oil into, making get-well gifts for. Now those gifts had long become food for the insects. The dying breath of the rainstorm licked at her neck and shoulders. What sanity she thought she had must have slipped out, as she took a moment to wait for the tangle of wood to respond. Her friends had such a vivid imagination, never disagreeing on what the tree said, and the story of the actual friend inside of the plant. That world of fey and elven monstrosities that had her enraptured for hours under the hot sun. Ez's eyes leveled with the long gashes striping the trunk, liquid pooling in the bottom corners. She touched the unfamiliar opening with her fingers, coating thick oil-like sap. The disgustingly sweet smell of decaying plants filled her senses. Her mind jumped back to the squirming bug kicking in pools of golden sap before stilling into globby orbs. She used to enjoy the smell of this sap. Now it clung dried to her fingers like glue. Nauseated, she wiped her hands along the cold mud to relieve herself of the feeling, as the subtle smell of years past danced in her mind. Do you remember? She stopped herself, knowing that the only information she'd get about that summer was that which she already knew. It was the last month of summer when the neighborhood fell apart, and it started with the soon-to-be firewood that sat before her. It told her and her friends in a soothing, ambiguous voice that if they gave it jewelry of gold, they would get a wish. Her mother thankfully hid the real jewelry in fear of a second Great Depression. The first crack was Melody when her family knocked on the door claiming that Ez stole a family charm bracelet. The argument that ensued resulted in a police search on both houses, which resulted in Melody's parents leaving with the police. When she asked her mother what happened, she shook her head and simply stated, "There are some things you just can't do without getting caught." Then Kit's and Peggy's family just disappeared. Her family always stood on a rocky foundation. Ez would go up to her door to play, and no one would answer except for the yowls of a cat. Their father was violently allergic to cats. After a few days even, the cat on the other side of the door wouldn't respond. Ez stood up as what desire she had to confront her past had left her. She reached in her pocket, pulled out a lighter, felt the ornate gold spiral on the sides, and stated, "I wish you would have been healed." And with that, that concludes the story, Untitled Part 3, from Short Stories of a Tired Mind. I hope you enjoyed that work as much as I did. AJ has helped me a great deal on this channel. I've been in communication with her for a while now, and she's also given me a number of stories with permission to read those stories on this channel. And for that I am very grateful, and I really think that she puts out good content which you should go and read. Not all of it is necessarily my cup of tea in terms of the genre of the writing, but I think they're all very good stories. And this one in particular is a story that I actually really enjoyed from her. And personally, I found all of these stories to be charming in their own way. Now, of course, they're not perfect, but I am currently working with AJ to improve on her writing, and likewise, she is helping me with my writing. So again, if you enjoyed this story, please go and check out the full anthology, Short Stories of a Tired Mind. It's on Wattpad, and I'll link it down below. And with all that being said, I bid you all a good night.